Well, hi everyone, and a warm welcome to you from a very cold day here in England. If you've not watched my channel before, my name is Joe, and today's video is going to be replacement of the hydraulic lifters, also known as lash adjusters or tappets. Now, I've been requested this video on a number of occasions from people, and until now I've put off doing this video purely because there were so many other videos online that showed you how to do it. However, I have now seen some of those videos, and in particular there is one from a TV show here in England that was filmed in America regarding these cars and the replacing of lifters. People was telling me that the show was telling them or not telling them certain things that were relevant to the fitting of these adjusters properly, and they were saying to me, well, you're doing it wrong because the show didn't mention it. Well, I'm really sorry to say this, but a show is a show. It is not there as a cast iron tutorial. It is not about making you a master mechanic, and it is not about showing you how to do the job as they would in a garage. For a start, the show is 30 minutes long, and no one can replace a set of lash adjusters in 30 minutes, as well as all the other jobs that they did on the car. So during this video, I'm hoping to show you what I hope will be the correct way of doing the job, which I hope will avoid some of the possible pitfalls in getting the job wrong and possibly doing serious damage to your engine. Now, on that note, this is a job that you shouldn't take lightly. Now, those of you that are regular mechanics on your cars are going to see this as no big deal. And potentially it isn't a big deal, but there are certain pitfalls that you can fall into if you're not aware of all of the possible things that could go wrong. So with that in mind, just a reminder, these videos are not for the professional mechanic. They are done for the average person at home who wants to do work on their own car. I am not a qualified mechanic, but I do have 30 years experience on these cars in all aspects, from rebuilding the engines to resprays. And although I do not consider myself to be one of the best around, I do consider myself to have a reasonable enough knowledge to be able to pass that knowledge on to the average man at home or woman at home who wants to work on a car. You can watch my videos and compare it to other videos and perhaps speak to experienced people and check that I'm giving you the right advice. Now, I won't take responsibility for any mistakes. Please use your own due diligence and your own health and safety to carry out the tasks that you plan on doing. Now, what else do I need to tell you? Why do we get problems with the lash adjusters? Now, the original ones fitted to this car, and for those of you that aren't aware, these are your lash adjusters. We'll have a quick talk about where they go and what they do. So this is a cylinder head off the car. Your car is a V6 and therefore it has two cylinder heads. I've only removed one because they're both pretty much identical, and it allows me to show you what this particular job's all about. You have 24 valves in your car. Each valve needs to open and close. 12 are your inlets, 12 are your outlets or exhaust valves. And those valves are opened and closed using your camshaft, which has a elliptical section of it, which as the cam turns, those lobes turn, and in turn they push down on your cam followers just here, and then your cam followers push down on the lash adjusters or hydraulic lifters. Now if I lift this up, you will be able to see, as I turn this, your valves open and close in sequence, and they are connected to your crankshaft, which in turn is connected by the cam belt and your timing is set so they all open and close at the right times. Now, your lash adjusters need to be oiled because they're very, very fast moving, and the oil is pumped through the oilways to each lash adjuster in turn. Now, if your car has been beautifully maintained using the right grade of oil at the right service intervals, it is highly unlikely that you are going to be having any problems with your lash adjusters. What is happening is if you don't change your oil at the right time and your engine isn't properly maintained, you get fine amounts of carbon deposit, dirt, soil, grit, pollutants from the air, moisture, all that sort of thing is going through your oil. And that oil, to lubricate, has to go in through this little tiny hole here. It has to feed two sections inside and then come out through this microscopic hole at the top. Now, a lot of people are saying that the problem with these is the hole is too small. I disagree with that. The hole is fine if your oil is clean. If your oil gets dirty, it's going to block up that hole. And some people say, well, the new valve hydraulic lifters, have a bigger hole. They've now gone to a 3mm hole. And people believe that's going to solve all the problems. I can guarantee you that in many cases this will not solve the problem. The problem is still down to a whole pile of other things. In some cases this will solve the problem, but it might only be temporarily. The problem is muck in your engine blocking up the oilways. Now, there are products on the market that you can buy. I'm not going to mention any names because there's lots of different brands around the world. It's an additive you can add to your engine. It should clean the engine, break up some of the deposits, and then solve the problem. And probably 8 out of 10 cars that I have here with noisy tappets, we put in the additive, run the engine till it goes quiet, put in fresh oil, and as long as they keep their oil clean from that point, they don't have the tapping anymore. Some people that doesn't work for, and they then change lash adjusters, and then they say, but it's still tapping. And I've seen a number of videos online where people have replaced these, they've done the job correctly, but they still have the ticking noise. Now that could be for a number of reasons. One is that oil pump is damaged. Because of all that muck going round there, it's no longer getting the full compression that it needs to pump that oil at the right pressure around the engine. And if there isn't the right pressure, then what's going to happen is the oil won't open up the valve inside to take up the gap in the adjuster. Also, of course, if the oilways that feed the oil to this are blocked up with muck, then again it won't receive the right pressure. Now if we look inside one of these things, you'll see what the problem may be inside. Where is my rag? I've got one here that I opened, and there is no reason at all why you couldn't open these out and clean them out ready to go again. So this is the part with your hole that oils the camshaft follower. So oil will be pumped up in there, come out of the hole, go into the camshaft follower to lubricate that. Then further down inside, if I can get this out, I will try my hardest. Doesn't always come out. Oh, it's coming, it's coming. Okay, excellent. So then we've got this section here. Now on here we've got a one-way valve. So as the oil comes through the hole on the side, it's partly forced down and partly forced up. When it's forced down, it opens up the little valve below, goes into a bottom section which is spring-loaded, and then it stops it going back down again so much. So therefore it takes up the gap between the lash adjuster and the follower. If you get muck built up in here, it stops that valve closing properly, and therefore the pressure's lost, and then the valve starts tapping again because there's a gap. So the answer is always maintain your engine. For £30, around $40, you can buy your 5 litres of oil and a new oil filter, and the job's done. And that will save you hundreds or thousands of pounds over the years in maintenance like this that shouldn't need to be doing if you just maintain your engine. Now, I've seen engines with 180,000 miles on them, still with their original lash adjusters and no ticking noise. My own car's 108,000 now, no ticking noise, still on the original adjusters. But we've got others here that have had 60,000 miles, and they're knocking like you wouldn't believe. So just bear in mind, replacing this may not solve your problem. If I was you, I would start with an additive, which you run just for a short period of time in your car, see if that quietens it down or cures the problem. If it doesn't, your next step is to replace these. If that doesn't do it, I'm afraid your next step is to start checking out your oil pump, or take the rocker covers off and just check for general muck in the engine. If it looks anything like this one, you have got serious problems. And I'm also going to put another picture on this video of another engine that someone brought to me for restoration, and I turned it down. Well, in fact, initially he asked me to fit it to his car, and I warned him that under no circumstances should this engine go into a car. It was sold as a perfect running engine. It actually turned out to be a piece of junk. He insisted that I fit it. I fitted it, and within a day the engine had seized because it was so caked up with muck that we couldn't get the oil to flow properly, and the engine seized. So please take care of your engine. Simple regular oil changes and filter changes save so much money in the future. So hopefully that's enough talked about. I'm now going to clear this stuff off the table. We'll have a look at the tools required, and then we'll get on with the job. Okay, for tools, we're actually splitting this video into 2 sections because it's just too big a video to do in one go. So the 2 sections will be rocker cover removal and gasket replacement, and then lash adjuster replacement. So if you want to watch the 2 side by side, it will be a big help. First of all, get your rocker covers off, and I'll show you how to do that in a video. That will give you access to your hydraulic lifters, and then that will also cover all the tools required for that. Then we come to this video to do the replacements, and then you can go back to the other video to put it all back together again. So for this video alone, you'll need a 1/2 inch wrench with a socket to remove your wheel. You'll need to remove the wheel on this side of the car. I won't say left or right, although I guess if you're sitting in the car it's the left side, but I don't want to get it confusing with left-hand drive cars, right-hand drive cars, etc. So if you're sitting in the car, it'll be the right-hand front wheel needs to be removed. You'll also need a couple of nice long... Left-hand? Did I say right? My apologies, I do have a reason for getting these mixed up. It's the left-hand wheel if you're sitting in the car. Left-hand front wheel. Okay. You'll also need a couple of 1/2 inch extensions for your wrench. You're going to need a method of pulling out the lash adjuster. What the hell did I... Oh, I know what I got these for removing the valve stem seals, but you don't need to use this tool. You can use a pair of pliers or whatever to pull them out of their tubes that they sit in. You'll also need a lash adjuster removal tool. These come in a couple of different size handles. The bigger the handle, obviously, the better the leverage. You're going to need a small tub of engine oil, clean engine oil, and you're going to need 24 lash adjusters. And that's pretty much it for doing this part of the video. So let's have a look at the car and what you're going to be doing. Now, as you can see, this engine has already had both rocker covers removed, and this is covered in the other video that I told you about. From this point, you can see the lobes and the cams and the angles that they sit at. So you see they're an elliptical shape. What we need to do is turn the engine so that the lobes are not putting any pressure on the followers, which is these parts here. Now, to turn the engine, you must never ever turn it by the cams, because this will mean that the cam belt tensioner won't work as it should, and there's a very high chance that you will cause the belt to slip, and then you've got a whole world of pain. So in order to turn the engine, you must only ever turn it by the crankshaft, and Mitsubishi have been good enough to give us easy access to the crankshaft for this purpose. To get to that, you just remove the wheel off of the left hand side of the car, grab your 1/2 inch drive with a couple of extensions on, and then if you come around here, I'll show you where you need to get to. Just here, we've got an access hatch. Pull out the rubber bung, and through there you can see the end of your crankshaft. If we put the 1/2 inch drive into that hole, that will now allow us to turn the engine. And you're going to need to turn it and keep on turning it until those lobes, none of the row is putting pressure onto the followers. So you just keep on turning, and you'll feel a point where most of the pressure goes, and you can see none of them are directly pushing down. This will allow us now to get the followers out and replace the lifters. Now you want your tool. Each side of these fixing points is a small gap, just big enough to get this in. There we go. And as I push down on this, or pull up on it I should say, it will release even more pressure on here, allowing us to get that out. Whoops! Oh, that's never good. Live TV again. I'll just put that there while I find that part. Okay, I found the follower, and it gives me a good chance to remind you that these parts are slippery. Try not to drop them. Now we need to get out our lifter, which is this part here. Now I've chosen this tool, but you can choose any tool you want that will allow you to grab hold of that thing and pull it up. Now be aware that some of these are going to be in really tight if you've not done your regular oil change. And they're also machined parts, so they'll be a perfect machine fit, so any grit or muck in there will cause them to get stuck. So there we go, that's the first one out. And you see that no longer compresses because it's built up compression in the bottom to keep it open. If we go over to the table, you will see when they're brand new. Okay, this will lead me on to the next problem in a second. There should be lots of compression distance, and as the pressure builds up in here, it will cause that to lock off at the right point so there's no gap. Now this was a perfect opportunity because I had a row with someone on the phone about these. He did not bother to check that these are without pressure. At the factory when they make them, they often pull some off the line and fully pressurize them with oil to check that there's no faults, and they don't always depressurize them. So you need to know how to depressurize it so it's ready to go into your engine. Never ever fit them unless they will fully compress, 100% compress, and the compression point is down to about there. So there's about 2 or 3 mil that doesn't quite compress. Now I'm going to go through all of these in a minute off video and just check. So this one doesn't compress. The method for decompressing is you need a small tool with about 1.5 mil thick. You'll go straight down the center and you'll find a little notch where it sits into. Once you've found that notch, you press in and then you'll see oil come out. And as the oil comes out, it will allow you then to compress this in. Once that's compressed, it should now keep on compressing. So that's now ready to fit. We'll do it for one more. That's another one. You see, they've tested these at the factory, which is a really, really good thing. You know that they've properly checked them. So again, we'll find that little notch in the middle, press the notch in. If we can find it properly, there we go. Once that notch goes in, squish it up a few times, all the oil will come out, and now it's ready to fit. So you just repeat that for all of them. On the show that was on UK TV but made in America, where they covered this car, what is it called, Wheeler Dealers, they did not mention this point, and believe me, that could easily cost you serious damage to your engine if you do not compress these first. They also mentioned on the TV about soaking these things for a couple of hours before you fit them to your engine. Soaking it will actually do very, very little other than to get a good lubricant on the outside, because you need pressure to get the oil through all those little gaps. And what you don't want it to do is go into the bottom of the follower, because then you end up with compression where you don't want it, and that won't compress. So before fitting it, dip it in some nice clean engine oil, and then you just drop it into the hole. Like so. Now you're going to need your follower and your tool. Now it's going to go this way because this dimple is the part that sits on top of there. Now this is a finicky job because actually if I swap with you, Mitch, let's see if I can do it better around this way. It's not so easy working from the side. Now if I put this in here without the follower, you can get a better look at what's happening. We're pressing down on the spring using the cam as a fulcrum, like so. And this will give us just enough gap to get this in. And it should sit nice and square on there with no movement. Or very little movement, I should say. It should not come off, it should not swivel off to the side, it should sit nice and flush. Then we can move on to the next one. Push the spring down, get the follower off. Do not catch your fingers in there because there's an awful lot of pressure. So that's that one off. Put that over here. Grab our next one, just have a double check that that all compresses. Get the old one out. Maybe I didn't choose the best of tools, because that's now stuck. There we go. Now sometimes you can just grab these with your fingers and pull them out. Even though this engine looks a bit dirty, it's actually not that bad, and these should pull out quite easily with your fingers. Again, that one's solid, so that was actually a good one. If ever you get these and you take them out and that compresses, it means the valve inside has been stuck open by muck and the oil pressure isn't building up inside there. So that's a good one. Where did I put my rag? Grab our next one and drop that in. I need that tool. Oh, did I drop some?
Yes. Might also be worth pointing that out for the viewers.
Well, there you go. You just did it for me. Thank you very much.
I'm really quiet. I don't know if they'll hear me.
Mitch just noticed that I dropped a spot of oil on this belt here. It is absolutely vital that you do not have any oil on the belt. It will weaken the belt structure and you stand a higher chance of the belt breaking before its normal lifespan. So I'm now going to repeat this. There's 24 to do. We've got 12 on the front and 12 on the back. There's no point me filming the same thing 24 times, so I'm going to complete this and then we'll catch up after. Okay, so the front row of hydraulic lifters is now replaced. I'm now going to move on to the back bank. The process is exactly the same for both front and back. We're going to turn the engine over manually just to get the lifters into the right position. There's a couple of things I forgot right at the very beginning that I just wanted to mention and remind you about. First of all, disconnect the battery before starting this job. And secondly, when you're turning the engine over manually via the crankshaft, always, without exception, always turn it clockwise. If you turn it the other way, there will be slack in the belt and there's a chance it will slip. So I'm now going to get on with the back one, which is exactly the same as the front, and I'll catch up with you once this is done. I've now completed the back set of lifters. They're all in place. There's just one final check now we've got to do before finally putting on the rocker covers. So on this end, we've got the bar and wrench still in the crankshaft. We're going to turn the engine one full revolution just to make sure all of the lifters and followers were seated properly, because sometimes they don't drop into place. You'll hear a click if any of them aren't lined up properly. That click is nothing to worry about. It's just where it pops into place. Because the spark plugs are still in position, there's an awful lot of compression in the engine, so it's not going to be too easy to turn. But that doesn't mean there's something wrong with it. So that's it, one full revolution, all okay. We'll take that bar out, we'll put the plastic cover back in, if I can remember where I put it, right there. And now we're ready to reassemble the engine. Now at this point I'm going to switch over back to the rocker cover gasket video, and then we'll come back to this once the covers are back on, just for a final start of the engine and see if it cured our knocking problem. Okay guys, it's been a really long day here now. As you can see, it's pretty dark, and yet it's not very late at night. It's just English winters for you. We're freezing cold. The rocker covers are all back on now. The engine's all back together as much as I'm doing for today. Now, when we replaced the hydraulic lifters, we found 5 of them that appeared to be faulty. The way I'm pretty sure they were faulty is that they have the one-way valve that I explained to you, and as the compression builds up, that valve will take up any tension, and then the lifter will become solid so it doesn't go back down again. 5 of them were fully compressing, and no matter what we did they would not go solid, so I'm assuming those 5 were faulty. The reassembly of the rocker covers and new gaskets and everything can be seen in another video. Right now, the final thing for me to do today is to start this engine and just hope this solves our lifter problem. Now, one thing to be said, we may not get a final result on this on video right now, because the first thing that's going to happen when we start this up is it's going to take a minute or two for the oil to circulate back into the lifters and build up pressure. That takes a few minutes. Once it starts to quieten down, you can start revving the engine a bit more to force more oil around and to build up the pressure quickly. But it's not uncommon for it to take some time for it to fully pressurize the lifters. And I've heard of some people that are driving it for a couple of days before it finally quietens down. So it'll be an interesting result knowing that we did have some faulty lifters. Let's just see if we can get something a bit quieter before we finish this video today. I'm only going to run it for a minute or two on video. After that we'll be finishing off and calling it a day. Oh, and please don't say anything about this. It's a temporary fix until I get some new cable clips on. So let's see what we get. from there because you've got the squeaking air compressor down there. And here, the ticking is almost gone and I didn't expect that on startup. However, we seem to have acquired a running issue. It's no longer running smooth. But that's another job for another day. Right now, I'm really happy with that because a lot of the really severe ticking has stopped. So let me shut this down. So many problems to solve, so little time. Somewhere to talk. Okay guys, limited daylight now, limited time. It's been a long day. The video was about changing the hydraulic lifters. They have been changed, and as far as I'm concerned, they've been changed successfully. We do have some other issues to resolve. Maybe they'll be done on video, maybe they won't. I hope this video's helped you out, and I hope it's cleared up some of the things that have been left out on other videos. One of the main ones being, if you're buying brand new lifters, they may have been tested at the factory and may still be compressed, and you need to release that pressure before fitting them into your car. Over the next couple of days, I'm hoping we'll resolve the issues with this car. One other thing to mention, when you get your lifter tool, if you can, try and get hold of the stainless steel one. There is one made of a soft, mild steel, and the problem I had with those, in fact a couple of problems, is one, you was getting shards of metal coming off and going into the engine, and secondly I found them a bit too flexible and flimsy, and you tend to only get one use out of them, one engine, and then really they're no good. The stainless steel one is a much stronger piece of kit, especially if you're going to be doing more than one of these engines. So for now, I hope that's helped you out, those of you that have requested this video. It's been a long day and we're looking forward to some food now. If you're new to this channel and you like it, don't forget to subscribe. If you've enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up. And those of you that have requested a Patreon facility because you'd like to contribute to the cost of running this channel, the Patreon is now running. Somewhere on this video you'll find the information on how to make a contribution, and I can assure you I'd be very grateful if you would like to. For now, that's it, and I hope to see you soon.